thank you. That's our panel for today. Thank you for coming. You can exit out this way. No, sorry. I'm actually making a video for my family, my kids, so. Wave hello to my kids. Hey. Thank you very much. So, thank you for coming. My name is Michael Goy. I'm the chair of the ASC AI committee. And we've been in existence for about a year and a half. We've conducted interviews with most of the major tech developers of AI algorithms that are in use now. And the purpose of it was to discover what each of these technologies can do and what it can't do. So we also wanted to learn which companies had aspirations to be active in the motion picture industry and to deal with professional image makers as opposed to, YouTube or just social media creators. So our interest is in making sure that the professional development of AI is done so in a manner that has transparency and with respect for the artists involved in the creation of the work. So, and I chose to call this panel AI and the Future of Cinematography because first of all, I was afraid no one would come, but also I knew it was a description that people would have deep emotions about because how much we love our crafts. So the panels we do at the ASC encompass a wide variety of opinions and expertise, both on the technology side and on the artistry side, and this one is no different. So let me introduce the panelists we have. At the far end of the table, we have Mr. Rob Legato, ASC, who's a visual effects supervisor and cinematographer. He worked on Titanic and The Lion King. Next to Rob, we have Eleanor Agropoulos, who is an AI content creator. Next to Eleanor, we have Angela Dunning, who is a lawyer for Cleary and Gottlieb. And she litigates AI cases, and I won't tell you on which side yet. We have Catherine Goldschmidt, BSc, cinematographer, House of the Dragon and The Last of Us. And we have Mr. Sal Totino, ASC, the cinematographer, Cinderella Man, Frost Nixon, and Unstoppable. So let me start with Eleanor, because Eleanor, you are somebody who I think represents, looking out at this audience, represents possibly a lot of the people here. You are somebody who's young, getting into the business, but you have built your entire business from AI content creation. So you want to talk a little bit about that, and then you have a reel to show.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. It's wonderful to see you all. So basically, my story is I'm a director, and I kind of fell into AI. So I feel like I came at it from just sheer curiosity. My story is essentially that I had a film that I was going to shoot last year. It was my first feature I was directing. I spent 8 years trying to, get it off the ground. And then the strike happened. And the day before we were going to shoot, the plug got pulled, which was devastating to say the least, but also like totally fine because AI was just kind of like there and I just needed to create something. So I was just in this space of like, okay, there's been so much waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen that I just need to make something. So sorry, go ahead.
So I was gonna say, why don't we show them some examples of what you've made? You have a 4-minute reel. Could we roll that, please, Rob?
Let's go, 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 go.
Massive kudos to Runway. With Runway, we can be any character we want to be and tell any story we want to tell. This is huge and absolutely game-changing for the future of storytelling and filmmaking. I could be a rabbit, I could be a cowboy, I could be a cartoon character, I could be a squirrel. The possibilities are absolutely infinite. Good morning.
I am definitely in my feelings today. I'm very anxious, but it's okay because the sun is shining and I'm here to have a really nice day. Big smiles, big hugs. Mwah.
In the land of gods and legends, she all reigns. Athena's here, the hero we embrace. Ancient power in her hands, the future calls. Facing titans, she stands tall. Athena's ascent, she's rising high. With wisdom and strength, she'll touch the sky. In a world of chaos, she brings the fight. Athena's here to make things right.
So, for those of you whose experience with AI has been thus far limited to ChatGPT for your term papers, that was probably half fascinating and half very frightening. So, Eleanor, why don't you explain a little bit about your process? And I think especially, you know, what I'm interested in is how do you approach being a creative visual artist in AI without being just an image thief? Yeah.
It's a really good question because I think that there's like a lot of people that, don't necessarily, like a lot of people understand what it is and there's also a lot that sort of don't. And so, you know, like I've had things go viral before just doing a test and everything that someone could say to someone I've heard, you know, oh, you prompt this in and that's what you got. And what you just saw is not that. So basically, predominantly, everything that you just saw, half of it was me testing the tech to see how far I could push it because I'm deeply, deeply nerdy and, you know, fascinated by it. I have a, you know, very like photography brain as well, so I just really love it. And then the other half was circling back to when my film didn't happen. What happened was my frustration kind of bled into like, okay, well, I can make something with AI, so how do I use this to like get the next project off the ground? So a lot of those longer pieces that you saw there are pitches for things that have been now greenlit. You know, the racing one is a series that we're currently, you know, going through, and then the Athena one that you watched is actually another like 8-part episode animated series that's, you know, that's currently happening. And I also used it for like storyboarding. So that's why it was like really important to kind of show my process. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But the other way I use it is I don't know if you're anything like me, my brain is just like on one all the time, and I have 1,001 ideas. So I'm just like looking for, you know, a writer to collaborate with or someone else to work with, because I actually really love collaboration. And so I would use AI to kind of like, I draw storyboards, and then I would take an image in Midjourney, kind of like, I think you saw a little bit of it there, create an image of a fisherman for this one piece that I'm doing, and then use that one image to transfer it across to like all of like 6 storyboards at once, and then take that to a writer I wanted to collaborate with and be like, hey, I've been trying to work with you for like 3 years. Here's like a 3-minute bit of what I'm trying to visualize. Are you interested? And in that particular case, the writer I wanted went, yep, I'm gonna start writing it tomorrow. So that was really fun. So that's kind of how I'm using it. Now, on the side of how to maintain the like my own kind of authorship on it, like I said, everything that you saw there, I find it really important to take all of these images and go through like a very long process. So I work with like 7 different programs, hand draw a lot, I Photoshop a lot, and I think by taking it, you know, I'll prompt something in Midjourney, and then I'll take it to Photoshop and add what I want in Photoshop, or I'll draw something and then kind of pop it in, and then I'll take that and then take it to a different program like Leonardo and train a model around it. And so I'm constantly working with different programs to put my spin on it and make sure that like my spin is my spin, rather than just trying to like take it out of make me something that is in the style of, you know, like Quentin Tarantino, and then boom, like I use that. That's not what I want. So, so that's how I kind of maintain that, you know, I guess authenticity. Yeah, artistic integrity, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Those of you who talk to Eleanor later, just know that that's the slowest I have ever heard her talk. So let me ask some of the cinematographers on the panel here, Catherine. You know, I don't know if you've utilized AI actively in any of your productions yet, but if you haven't, is there any place in your prep or your workflow that you think it could fit, and is there a hard line where you feel like AI should not intrude on your process?
Hello. When Michael asked me to be on this panel, I was like, well, I'm interested in coming to the panel because I actually, to be honest with you, have not really used AI. I have definitely, you know, I mean, I'm on the Midjourney Discord or whatever, and I've dabbled a very tiny bit because I was interested in using it as a brainstorming tool. But to be honest with you, I got a little bit nervous of just, you know, because I feel like the prompts need to be specific enough, but then obviously we're signing NDAs, we're working on sensitive material, so I was sort of worried about like putting that out into the ether in this way. I don't totally understand what happens to it, but after this panel, maybe I'll understand better. But as far as because I think, did you ask about like if I would draw a moral line?
Yeah, is there maybe not even a moral line, but whatever, is there an aspect of your creative process as a cinematographer that, you know, you would not want AI to encroach upon, you know, that you'd want to keep as basically, you know, an analog process for yourself?
Well, I guess I would worry that if I would, you know, train the tool or produce the image so much so to the level of specificity and show it to a director, say, that then I would be making what we would then do on set obsolete. I'm sure that's a lot of people's fear in the room. And so I guess it's a fine line between still approaching it as, you know, I mean, I'm really interested in how you're using it, Eleanor, as like a storyboarding tool or, you know, a jumping off point. And, so it's just about navigating that, because I feel like even when one is sort of looking for references and putting together lookbooks, even then sometimes you run the risk, if all of your references say are other films, then you can sort of slip into perhaps what could be like an AI situation where you just think that what you're doing is copying other films, and what you're actually wanting to do is take a little from here and take a little from here and sort of synthesize, and then you want to feel like what you actually do on set is singular and special and unique and unrepeatable.
Yeah, I tend to, my fear tends to stem from feeling like if I start to rely too much on feeding prompts to AI and then getting results back, I'm cutting off my brain from actually going farther than it would have had I not settled for whatever it was giving me at the time, and building off of that. And this is Alice Brooks. No, Alice was going to be on this panel and really wanted to be here, but she's on a later flight, so she could not make it. So Sal generously offered to step in. And same thing, Sal. Is like, what about your process? You've done all these movies with Ron Howard that have had visual effects in them and different things. What about this process do you think you need to keep for yourself?
Well, we all work very differently. And like Catherine, I don't know much about AI. I do have some fears and anxiety about it. The part that I have a hard time with is I'm asking a computer to try to visualize an idea or thought that I'm having. And it's just going out there and it's just searching that way for it. When I do a project, I draw from a lot of references. I draw from music, I draw from photography, I draw from films, just everyday experiences that sort of invoke a certain feeling in me that I might be able to translate to a visual image. I'm not so great with language. So trying to give specific types of prompts, I find myself sort of falling like, what do I say? What do I say? So I have a huge library, a photo book library, and there's a photo book store that I frequent that I tend to draw a lot of images from that. And when you start looking at one thing and start looking at it, it kind of sparks another thought in you, and you're looking another way at something else. When I'm asking a computer to do something, my brain's waiting. I'm not thinking. I'm not invoking any of my emotions, any of my imagery, any of my thought. And then it's going to give me a result, and I'm going to be like, well, I like it or not like it. And then it ends it feels like it ends there. And then the other fear I worry about is when we start really doing, say you're doing a big visual effects project, and you're creating these AI images, you're going to have a visual effects supervisor coming back and going, okay, these are the lights that created this image, and this is where those lights need to be, and this is the lens that it should be on. And it takes that inner emotion out. It's like, I like to cook, I like food. And when I cook, I could cook the same dish with the same ingredients, and it's different every time. And when I create films, I'm trying to tell a story visually that will help tell that story. And it's not the same each time. And I need, for me, it's me to sort of bring that there, and not sort of a computer that's just searching out in the internet because of some prompts that are generating it. So, I'm a little skeptical about using it in that way.
Great, and let's talk to one of those awful, hideous visual effects supervisors now. Mr. Rob Legato is one of the best visual effects supervisors in the business, and part of the reason I think that he's one of the best is because he's also a cinematographer at his core. So everything for him comes from the way we visually tell story and making sure that everything feels organic to the material, even on huge fantasy-oriented material like The Lion King and The Jungle Book. So Rob, why don't you?
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction. It was really sweet of you. I have a slightly different opinion about most of this stuff, mostly because I am a cinematographer. I studied cinematography in school, and I love filmmaking in general, and anything to give me a leg up, to give me more experience, especially when I was starting out, was a tool that I could show up on stage and be more equipped, have more experience than my years of experience actually produced. So I use it all as a tool. I can't draw, so storyboards are sort of out of the question, and I don't like other people's storyboards for pretty much the reason that Sal was talking about. Is you created that in some void without the input in front of you, and you drew it, and all of a sudden now becomes a contract that I have to shoot that. And it's like, well, that doesn't really fit the movie in my head that particular day with those actors, with that director, with that cinematographer of the first unit if I'm doing the second unit work. So I'm not going to look at that. I'm not going to. It's just an aid or a guide that maybe somebody can communicate, but I'm never going to use that. And even when I do my own previs, where I am the cameraman and I light it, and I light it pretty much the way I'd light it on set, and I know how to do all that stuff. Even for my own stuff, it's like when I show up on the set, I'm going to do something that is now appeals to me. So it's much like cooking, where, you know what, here was the recipe, but now today I'm going to add a little more of this and a little more of that, and I'm not going to slavishly just go with what was previously done. It's only there for a tool to help get your ideas to the next level, so they could be discussed perhaps with somebody else. I mean, part of my job as a supervisor, as well as a director and a second unit director, is to quantify the unquantifiable. What is the shot? Everything to me, because I come from camera, is everything's the shot. All the theory in the world goes away. I need to know who's in the frame, who's not in the frame, how big it is, where we're moving to, why we're doing the shot at all in the first place. So all that story, all that stuff is the kind of the loose material that I need to spring the idea at the moment I need to execute it and make it work. So that's why it's not buried in, well, I already did that work and now I'm going to just follow it. So if you want, I could show you kind of how I use it. I'm a rank amateur compared to Eleanor. Holy shit. I mean, I'm nervous. Jesus Christ almighty. Well, so let me, hold on.
You want to see rank amateur? I'll show you my stuff.
I'm going to show you something that how I would use it, and this is very, very simple, and it answers a little bit Sal's issue of how do you prompt something. So here is Laurence Olivier. It's if you haven't seen it, it's a pretty good movie. At any rate, so this. Well, let me make it bigger. Yeah. So this is one of the great shots in the movie, and so I asked one of the AI programs to describe it. So here's the description. This is a wide cinematic shot of a massive color. So now it's making up the prompt. And this prompt is then I say, well, let me see what it will create for me, and it created that. So I was like, well, that's a facsimile of what I would shoot. That's kind of has the tone of what we're looking about. It's really a backlit shot of a bunch of horses in a nice location. So when I show up on the day, depending on how many horses I have, how many flags I have, whatever, it may not be this. But it's good enough to now discuss with the director. Is this what you're looking for? Is that not what you're looking for? I've worked with some directors who have, they just have no idea what light is. There's no concept whatsoever. What direction it is, we'll try to lead you in the direction of shooting front light. And if they want a shot like this, it has to be lit like this to make it work. And I worked on a movie where I was even called in because somebody did a shot that I knew, it was a Martin Scorsese film, that he was referencing Lawrence of Arabia, and wasn't communicated properly to the visual effects person, who has no idea how to shoot anything, so he couldn't fill in the blanks. And they shot it at noon, and it was like, how come it doesn't look like that? Because you lit it wrong. I mean, it's like, and Marty asked me, what could we do? It's like, nothing, reshoot it. I mean, you can't get there from here. He was very disappointed, by the way. So this is how one could use it. If I didn't know how to shoot, I mean, I knew from the description, like, this is the shot. I know he's a film historian, so this is now I could talk on his level. But for somebody else, maybe some of the inferior supervisors Sal you've worked with, so not impugning their good work, but. Okay. Well, I'll give you my card later. So here's another one, just to experiment with this idea. So here's another one, another shot from Lawrence of Arabia. Still a good movie. And so I'll let you read it. And this is the prompt that you would get. So this is the style. And there's actually a ChatGPT prompt that says, let me help you with your Midjourney prompts. And so it will describe this in detail. Now, once you do this, you could then cut and paste what you like from this photograph to something, to another photograph, to another photograph, and all of a sudden you now have a prompt that will get you into the ballpark of what you want to see. And so now it made that. So it describes a shot of camels in the desert, much like the Lawrence of Arabia one. And then on the day, might light it better, might be a better time of day, might have some other story point we're trying to make. So I don't have to live with this image. I could then say, well, I know we're doing something like it. So the crew now knows what we're doing, you know how many camels we need to have that day, and all the rest of the stuff that is the sort of creative portion of the program. It's like you have to set up the scene and you have to have all the props and all the things ready so that you can manipulate them with the camera and the camera move and all the various things to bring this to life, to bring the story to life. And so I don't have it that it's going to impinge me. It's only going to help me communicate to somebody else. And when I do it, a lot of times I do second unit where I don't necessarily have a conference with the director about what I'm doing, but I still like to do my own homework. And maybe it'll spark, now that I see a description of something, it'll spark an image that I will then look for, and it might help me find a location, and that location begets something else. Like, oh, well, that is really cool, but I wouldn't put the horse there, I'd put the horse over there. And all of a sudden I'm off to the races, and the guy thinks I know what I'm doing, which is not true. Here's another one. There's going to be another great shot. And then, again, had to describe it and made 4 pictures. And again, it's not, you know, I love the David Lean shot more than I love this portion. But again, when I go there on the set, I know what this shot is. I know what I'm trying to capture, and it captures something like that. So that's how I use it. I use it for a lot of things. There's, you know, I was going to show you all this. Her reel just kind of blew me out of the water, so I'm kind of hosed here. No, it's oh sure, okay. Yeah, normally you shame people into doing this and they show you something really great, and this is not the case. So, all right. I'll show you what I prepared. Damn you, Eleanor.
Good.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for the encouragement. So this is the gimmicks that you know we like about it, and it's like, well, you know what? As a supervisor, as a director, maybe there's something about this, or if I'm doing a scene that harkens back to the past, and I want to animate, you know, a real person. You have to get permission. There's a whole other AI thing about the legality of it and the morals of it and all that stuff. I'm sure we'll get into that. But you know, it does something really interesting. If I could have a scene that I could have Albert Einstein in it, and Albert Einstein could come to life, and it elicits a response or a thing from the audience because of what appears to be the authenticity of it. This was stunning to me. This is a very beautiful person, and then to see her come to life and smile was like, holy Jesus.
I love that Albert Einstein just cursed.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's like, well, you know, I didn't know this could do it. The idea that it could even do that is like a miracle, and how useful is it? Now, there's a movie that was made that used this technology, which is here with Bob Zemeckis. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean because it was used, it's really great, or you're going to love that movie or anything else. It's just another tool in the arsenal of telling a story of these two people. They are acting themselves. They are it. It doesn't replace them. It just enhances their career because they can now play themselves 20 years ago or 30 years ago or in the future. Or, you know, there's some actors, you know, we do these movies where they're in makeup for 6 hours and then they have to act all day long. And then by the end of the day, the makeup is dripping and it's starting to come apart. And it's kind of a deal. If they didn't have to do that, would they be able to enact the part better, perhaps? They're not as tired, they're not as sleepy about it, they're not, we're not trying to light away from the sweat that's dripping between the makeup layers. You know, all those things could now sort of go away. You now have a choice to say, well, you know what, let's make them up, let's do all that stuff, and then now let's shoot them clean. And in fact, in this particular technology that for this particular movie, they could do this live. They can see the younger performance live. So in your video tap, you are not seeing the older Tom Hanks, you're seeing the younger Tom. Now, it's not as good as what the final will be, and it takes a while to actually perfect all that stuff, but it does do that. And
I'm just kind of curious, since you could see Tom Hanks live on the monitors at various stages of his development, did that alter your perception of what you wanted to do with the lighting or the cinematography?
Well, I didn't do that. It would have, I'm sure. And
no, but for Don Burgess, you worked with Don
Burgess
on that.
I worked with Don Burgess, but not in this movie. The supervisor did it. A very good one as well. But at any rate, it does. Anything that you see in front of the camera, even if it's implied in front of the camera, like I did a movie called Hugo, where it was all the thing about 3D, and 3D was like, well, we'll just add it later. It's like, no, you can't add it later because it affects the lighting and the composition of how you're shooting it. So we need to watch it in 3D, see it, and then we say, oh, we need to actually add some light back there because it's black, there's no depth whatsoever, and we want the depth to tell the story. And we also want to do some action with the 3D that is changing the, I forget what it's called now. I just flew in last night. Convergence, change the convergence so it kind of instinctually makes somebody peer through the screen, and it's like a zoom. So it's like you can't really design that shot and that import unless you see it. So in this particular case, this would change the way you would light it. It would change the way, if you want her to look more beautiful, there's ways, of course, of doing that. If part of the scene is to make her look a little more haggard, even though she's younger because of the turmoil she's in, you would change it. You wouldn't just, and you don't sit there with dots on their face and not be able to picture it. Now you can actually see what the composite's going to look like. And in a lot of visual effects that we end up doing, which I also recommend to cinematographers, is that don't let the visual effects supervisor, unless it's me, dictate the camera and the lighting or anything else. That's your job. The picture that you're creating at the end of the day needs to go into the movie, needs to match every other shot you're doing. And the best way for you to do it is to have one unique vision do it. So operate the shot, operate the previs, operate all the various things you're doing, because ideas spring out from doing it yourself and seeing it live and in real time. And that's what this technology allows you to do. And the technology for doing previs allows you to do is like all of a sudden when I'm operating a shot, it's like I'm going to do 5 takes because there's various times when I'm going to pan sooner or later, and I'm going to print all 5 takes, and the editor is going to cut them in, and then that sequence that we show to the director or the cinematographer, or if I'm doing it, is a basis, but not it. It is a way of doing it. It feels like a movie. It looks like a movie. It was done by a filmmaker, and make it better now. Now you get the next iteration of your idea. It's like a rewrite of a script. It's like it gets better and better as you rewrite it because you have a chance to sit with it and look at it. If you don't have this little tool to do it, you are editing the first or second version that came into your head or whatever you shot on the day that is not necessarily as experienced as if you did it 3 or 4 or 5 times and got a chance to cut it all together and cut it in as daily. So I recommend that to all cinematographers. When you do previs, don't bitch about it, just shoot it. Just do it yourself. Just insist on it, and no one's gonna quarrel with you. No one's gonna tell you where to put a light. You tell them where to put a light. Maybe you're gonna work with somebody very good who can help fill in the blanks and have a nice, compatriot type of relationship, much like I had with Caleb. Is that we came from the same spot. We came from the same sort of sensibility. I of course studied him, so now I have a leg up in terms of I kind of are trying to emulate what he does. So it's not that far off, and maybe he would go, now that I see what you did, move the light here and do this and add a little fill over here, or forget the fill, we don't need the fill. All of a sudden it makes me my work even better still because he's a master cinematographer. So it's part of the, don't be fearful of technology. It's there to help you, not hurt you. And so my point of view is a little bit, and start to do it. And even if it's mediocre and doesn't really quite work, at least you understand what somebody else is talking about. And then when you see Eleanor's work, you say, well, that's how good it can be. And maybe one day it'll replace a second unit shot that you might have had to go out and get. But it's not going to replace a movie. It's not going to make a movie. I talk too much.
No. Mediocre is a sensitive word at this camera image.
Well, that's why I was invited.
You said something on one panel that we several of us were on together with James Cameron. You said that AI cannot make a great filmmaker out of a bad one, but it can make a great a great filmmaker somebody who is even greater. What?
Yeah, well, I mean, that to me is true. I'll try to give you a brief story. I did a film with Martin Scorsese. He's a good filmmaker. You should look into it. At any rate, it was Aviator, and I had to shoot a plane crash I've never shot before. And I was in charge of doing it. I was doing the second unit and also the visual effects supervisor. And I never shot one before, and I didn't bother in the interview to tell people I had no experience doing it. So I needed to rely on doing previs that I could hand operate every shot, and then I cut it together, and it was like, holy shit, that's really bad. I can't show anybody this. So let me shoot it again, let me shoot it again, let me look at some other sequences. And all of a sudden, I started to get the vocabulary down of what to show him. And when I showed him, it was pretty much the scene that's in the movie, and I went and I just executed what I did. But I got experience, so most of everything we do is all taste, and you're the continual tastemaker of that shot's not good enough, it's not fast enough, it's not cool enough, it's not lit well, and you keep on massaging and massaging, massaging. And so the ability back then, which is now far superior to what I was doing back then, allowed me to have the experience of shooting 16, 17 plane crashes and editing out the crap that I didn't want anybody else to see, and create the illusion to get hired again that I know what I was doing. So that's the part that makes a good filmmaker a better filmmaker. It will not make you a good filmmaker, though. Having that tool, you could give anybody a camera and lights and an actor, and you will get a bunch of different results. You give it to Marty or Jim or Francis Coppola or Steven Spielberg, and with Janusz Kaminski and all these other DPs, the collusion will make something great with the same equipment as making something shitty. And so it's not that, it's the inner talent there. And if you have anything to give you a leg up to get to it sooner, get you more experience beyond what your years actually have, it's all to your benefit. You will become a much better filmmaker. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Rob. So let me take you now to the dark side. No, not really. Angela Dunning, as I mentioned, is a lawyer with the firm Cleary Gottlieb. And I first heard her speak at the Motion Picture Academy at an AI day that they had there. And it was a tough job because she was there to address the question of artists' rights. It's a difficult position to be in with a new technology emerging, and in the United States, every deal memo and every contract that we sign states that we relinquish rights to that image that we created. It becomes the property of the studio, the property of the production. So it complicates, the issue. In some way, it clarifies and simplifies it, but it complicates for the person who's the creative artist who feels like their work is being appropriated and used as the basis for something else. So I invited Angela specifically here because she's so good at talking about, that subject, but also other things that creative people need to do, basically, in this industry. So.
Thank you, Michael, and it's nice to be here. Odd man out though I am, nobody likes a lawyer joke more than a lawyer, and I don't know if there's a lawyer who likes movies more than I do. One thing Rob said that I'll just start with before I launch into some of the copyright and other legal issues that certainly come up in this area a lot is AI is a tool. It's a tool like any other. How you use it, whether you use it, to what extent you use it, depends on what you need it for and whether you think it's useful. And that's true across the board. So I write for a living. I go to court and I write briefs and I represent clients and I give voice to what they need to do. I don't use AI to write my briefs, right? That comes from my head and my creativity. But it sure helps me more efficiently pull up research. It helps with recipes at night. It's whatever you need it to do to support the work that you would do anyway. Nothing ever created by an AI didn't start with a human who needed something done. Everything ever created by generative AI is a human creation because it's a human that willed that into existence and asked for it and then worked with it to get it to do what they needed to do. So I've been practicing copyright law in the US for 25 years. I work with content creators, I work with artists, I do civil rights work and all sorts of things. But the reason I'm here is because I represent a number of developers, including Midjourney and Meta, who have developed AI models. And I am defending a number of the copyright class action lawsuits that were filed against these developers and others relating to the training of their models. Now, I'm not working on the cases in which the New York Times or the music publishers have filed lawsuits claiming something has come out of your model, out of ChatGPT, that copies my work. That is not my case. In my cases, there isn't a claim that anything that has come out of Midjourney or anything that has come out of Llama looks anything like the works of the plaintiffs. The claim is that the training of the model, which involved making copies of millions or billions of texts or works, is copyright infringement. And so the position I'm taking in court, and the position that I think will prevail in the US when all the dust settles after court decisions and appeals, is that that training is fair use. It is very much like the human process of ingesting information, whether it's, we were talking about this earlier, where you learned what a flower is, from a garden, from your books your mom used to read you, from pictures of flowers in a magazine, from paintings that Georgia O'Keeffe has hanging in a museum. If you take all of that learning and you swirl it around in your brain and you make something new, that's yours. And if you use all of that learning and you make something that looks like Georgia O'Keeffe's painting, that's copyright infringement. And those concepts are the same whether we're talking about AI or any of the work anyone in this room is doing, or frankly, whether you go to the internet and you pull something off that doesn't belong to you and you try to sell that as yours. That part, not okay. The learning from what came before to create something new, to which the people in this room and others put their passion and their vision and their voice and their experience, that is something that for all of time we've been doing as creators, that we're going to continue to do as creators, and that my position is US copyright law permits. So I'm happy to drill down on any specific issue if you want, Michael, but that's my opening salvo.
Thank you, Angela. So they did extend our time because it took a while to get people in the room. So I do want to open it up to Q&A, to questions and answers for the group over here. So if we could bring up the lights. If you have a question, please raise your hand and they'll get a microphone to you. Of course, way in the back in the center. Who's going to be next? Who has a next question? Okay, it'll be in the front over here next. Yeah.
Hello. I want to ask you, maybe you have a different opinion about this topic. You think film school students has to have from, I don't know, next year or in next 2 years, start to lessons about prompt writing in film school? Thank you.
So thank you for that question. It's a really good question. I have actually been teaching a bunch of film schools lately that have started introducing this because the general consensus is that it is now like part of our future. And so, I think the stance I think a lot of people take is like AI is not going to replace you, but a human using AI will. So I'm seeing that a lot of film schools are teaching that, and I think it's smart too, because it's here, it's part of our future, and if you're going to be articulating, when you're mood boarding, like they'll teach you at film school, like this is how you grab a mood board and go to shot deck and go here and go there. I think it will just be another way for you to go, well, instead of, maybe I can't find what I need with that and I can do it quicker by creating my own version of it. So then it becomes very efficient. So yes, is my long-winded answer.
I'm hoping to retire soon, but you had a question. Yes.
Hi. I have sort of two questions. First one is about the sort of concerns about the energy usage of AI, and that I read some article that by 2027 it's gonna be like equivalent to the amount of all of Norway is using or something like that. And the second part is about your opinions on using AI in documentaries, because in recent years there's been some instances where AI was used to fabricate images in documentaries for some family to showcase a happy before the tragedy sort of photos and such. And also on I think Amazon here's some images of Nosferatu, AI posters for the movie for some reason, so yeah.
I'll probably throw this to Angela, but I will say that there are companies who are actively trying to get certain things embedded in their algorithms so that a flag basically comes up if it incorporates any kind of AI imagery in it. But Angela, you want to take it?
Yeah, I mean, there is a bunch of legislation proposed in the United States around deepfakes, and obviously that's a matter of ethics, I think, in terms of what you're presenting and being forthright about that. And I think a lot of the AI developers are jointly coming together to voluntarily make sure that things are getting tagged. And there are a bunch of different providers who claim they have software that can detect that, and that's possible. With respect to your first question, I think it's a really important one, because the data usage and energy usage is a huge problem. There are companies working on that. At the most recent TED AI in San Francisco last month, there was a presentation by the founder of Extropic about some work they're doing on quantum computing, which will reduce the energy consumption dramatically. It was incredible. So I think we are going to see huge advances in that area, and it may very well be AI tools that are enabling the solutions to the problems that we're talking about in terms of AI generation. I mean, I always like to pan out a little bit in these topics, because obviously this is, we're here, it's an industry event, we're thinking about it in terms of movie making, but these tools are being used to diagnose brain cancers that were previously undiagnosed, and to find disease pathways, and to address climate change, and to find all sorts of solutions. So I'm a techno optimist, and I believe we're going to solve the energy issue, because we have to, and we'll figure out how to make it work for us.
Where I read somewhere too is that a lot of these companies like Google and Amazon, who use a tremendous amount of computer power, are looking into smaller, independent atomic reactors to actually produce power. They're much safer because they're much smaller, and they're actually be able to power their render farms. And I believe that Bitcoin uses more power than just about anything on the planet. So I don't think that's a great idea. But at any rate, and your other part of the question though is it's not an AI thing. If you're making a documentary and you're posing it as something real, you would have used an actor and created this image. So it's really the morals of that particular application. It's not an AI thing. It's really what that filmmaker is doing. Now, it was also most of the modern documentaries use reenacted or enacted material, and it's sort of understood that that's what's happening. So it's not an AI issue. It just happens to use that avenue to create it, because you would have created some other way. All right. Yeah. Okay. So.
Your image is still frozen on the screen. But, and any other questions? Yes. You, and then you behind him. Okay.
So first of all, thank you very much for this very interesting panel. I have a concern about AI because a friend of mine was making a very short documentary only with AI tools like Midjourney and all those other tools. And I myself don't know AI, so I have a very limited view and knowledge. But my main concern is actually regarding gender inequality and ethnic inequality, because he was showing me an example. He wanted to make a group picture, like a future group picture of female lawyers for an environmental law. And he said it was such hard work to bring a female lawyer in the center of the group picture in this Midjourney tool. And it took him several attempts until finally a female lawyer was standing in the center, not somewhere around or in the shadow or in the background. So I just wonder, or what is your experience or about that? Because I think especially this year it's a very important topic on this festival. Thank you very much.
You raised a question that I've been actively raising for the last several months, because I took 3 AI algorithms and I gave them the exact same prompts, 2 prompts. One was successful heart surgeon, and the other was underprivileged inner city child. And for the successful heart surgeon, every single one of them gave me a white male. And for the underprivileged inner city child, it gave me a black 9 or 10-year-old boy. So, you know, when the training material is the breadth of everything that we have on the internet, everything on YouTube, everything in publication, the billions and billions of stuff that have comprised our civilization up to now, it's going to end up repeating the cultural stereotypes that we're trying to get rid of, we're actively trying to get rid of. And the studios, to some degree, I think, recognize this. You're starting to see partnerships between major studios and major AI developers, and they're trying to hone in their training data toward something more like the direction that they want to go to. And I think that, to some degree, is a hopeful thing, because it'll vary, you know, the results we're getting. But I don't know if anybody else wants to comment.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I totally echo that. That's been my experience as well. Like, I was prompting, you know, female Formula 1 drivers, and they all came back with really big boobs. And like, you know, and they were all blonde and like hot. And I actually like raised this. I was like, yeah, I was just like, I feel like AI has a hotness problem. You know what I mean? Because everyone I was prompting, even the guys, they were just like hot. So that was fun. And I actually, yeah, so I ended up like teaching this in a lot of the classes that I teach outside of this, is like how to prompt for diversity, because it's unfortunate that I have to teach that, like, to be honest, but that's just where we are. And what I've seen since that started happening is I'm super like on the Twitter and the, you know, Reddit, and amongst all the nerds, and everyone's echoing the same thing. And there are new AI apps that are trying to be like in competition with Midjourney. Like, Midjourney is kind of your gold star, right? But there's other ones coming out like Magnific, and, you know, a lot of new ones that are on, you know, coming up through the radar, that I have actually stopped using Midjourney and using those programs now, because like some of the footage I showed, you would see like an Asian girl, you know, walking and running. I got that on the first go. You know, I didn't have to prompt that. And so I was like, okay, this is really positive. So I am starting to see a change. It's just like, it's coming from the competition of, you know, your Midjourneys and whatnot. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then Rob.
Sorry, you go ahead, Rob.
Oh, okay. The other thing I think is going to be a new trend is also training your own AI model, which, you know, you could download these models, and then you create a data set, and the data set reflects what you think it should be, not what the mass, you know, I mean, I think they sort of just put in everything they found on the internet, and there's a trend that is like the society trend that is not necessarily what we want to reflect. So to make it reflect what you want and make it an individual tool for you, you would create your own data set. And I think that'll be the future more than you know, the ubiquitous Midjourney or whatever else.
Yeah, fine-tuning becomes really important then when you are are training it for your specific purpose. You mentioned a female lawyer. I have to tell you how often I show up in court and there are 20 lawyers up in front, and I am the only woman practicing, at the level I do. I think you have to be intentional, right? That's why when I put together a team to go out and pitch to a client, I am very conscious of who I'm bringing and the opportunities that I'm creating. I think we have to be intentional when we prompt the tools, which it sounds like you have been. And then these are algorithms, right? They're not thinking, they're not imposing any sort of judgment or ethics on it. They really are just taking a probabilistic, information from what they've been trained on. I am recently consulting with an organization that represents an association of Black creators to see about helping to expand diversity and training material in what these models have access to. So that's something that we can continue working on. But I think you've got the opposite problem because they don't think, Google had a huge stumble. I guess it was much earlier this year, where somebody prompted Gemini to spit out an image of Nazi officers and in a bid toward inclusiveness presented Nazi officers who were an Asian woman and an African-American man. That's counterfactual and inappropriate. So we can overcorrect those things too. I think what we have to take from that is each of us who prompts these tools to create something, we should be responsible for what we're creating. We should be responsible for how it goes out into the world. And it's because it represents our creation just as much as anything else we would ever make or put out. So it sounds like you're already doing your part, and there are other ways we'll keep addressing it.
Yeah, I'm going to be outside the door next camera image selling for $19.99 data sets that are more diverse for your AI algorithms. So, but it also emphasizes the point why all of you need to be at least aware, informed, involved as this technology becomes prevalent in the motion picture industry, because it's really looking out at most of you. You are the next generation of filmmakers in the world, and a lot of this is being developed right now, and it's a prime time for you to get involved with it and learn it. You had a question.
Yep.
Yeah.
At what point is an image plagiarized, and who is receiving royalties? Is just going to be ongoing litigation for people picking out that, like you can definitely prompt images that, like a Tarantino style picture that like who is going to receive the benefits of that? Is it just the creator that's, put the prompt in, or the people that have contributed all of the data that has, allowed these algorithms to produce a picture that, is representative of somebody else's work? Like it's quite blurry because, I've seen in Eleanor's show reel, there were definitely pictures that, I feel very well represented other creators, other studios, and other films over the years. It's quite a blurry line of who is the artist at that point.
Angela, you want to take this, or should I give it to Sal?
Well,
I think we all could answer it. Yeah.
So I understand and appreciate your question. I'll answer by asking you a question to start, which is, has not every movie you've ever seen influenced what you can and choose to make? You may choose not to use what you've learned. You may reject it, or may find things, or may want to build on something. So I'll quote Mark Twain, just because I haven't heard a better quote that I think fits the circumstance. Mark Twain said, "There's no such thing as a new idea. It's impossible. We simply take the same old pieces of colored glass that have been in use through all the ages, and we put them into a sort of mental kaleidoscope that each of us turns to make something new in our own vision and voice." And that's really what's happening every time each one of us creates. Every time you create, and I think you heard it on this panel, you are drawing on every book you've ever read, every movie you've ever seen, every experience you've ever had. And you may credit, different influences, but you don't pay them, because at least in US copyright law, unless you are taking the specific expression of an idea, you're not infringing somebody's rights. Ideas, concepts, styles, they are free for everyone to use the moment you put something out into the world. And we want it that way, I would argue, because at least in the United States, we have the First Amendment, we have this protection, right? If we could not comment on other people's work, if we could not build on it, if we can't create in dialogue and discussion with what came before, free speech ends. The development of art ends, because where does your art start and somebody else's art begin? Are we going to box everything up and then be afraid to try something new because we've been influenced by other work? The copyright law gives space to build on other people's ideas and work, so long as what you are expressing is your own version of that idea. And where you cross over into copying somebody's specific expression of that idea, it's infringing. So in AI or any other space, whether it is probably, it's the same analysis, right? It's not whether you took the idea or the sense of faire or the basic building blocks of creativity, it's whether you took the specific expression of another artist. And when you do that, you're infringing. And where you're building on ideas with your own vision, you're not.
We like to call it an homage.
Yeah,
Sounds so much nicer than that way. The one thing I'll say about a Quentin Tarantino shot is when you start to get into the specifics of what is a Quentin Tarantino shot, what is it exactly? He didn't invent the person who's in front of the frame. He didn't invent the background. Didn't invent the clothes they're wearing. It's a probably borrowed, because he's a tremendous filmmaker who looks to the past for inspiration, as we all do. And he created something that you can identify as a Quentin Tarantino, but you could also go back in time and find out where the origin of that was. So we tend to do it all the time, and on purpose, to create something that reminds you of something you think you've never seen before, but it reminds you of something. And so it's a very fine line. I don't know exactly what the legalities of that is, but we do that. That's part of our life to do that.
Picasso said, good artists borrow, great artists steal. And Quentin Tarantino says he steals from everybody else in every movie he makes. And he's quoted as saying that. Even he would say, George Lucas famously attributed, to Kurosawa as a huge influence for him. Then you read Kurosawa's autobiography, and he says, Dostoevsky was a huge influence on me for his themes of redemption, and the movies of John Ford for their visual style, but also the sort of unlikely hero succeeding against impossible odds. Did Lucas steal from Kurosawa, who stole from John Ford? Yes and no. I'm glad they all are there. We would be a far less rich society if they weren't.
No, I was just going to add to say, I agreed. Quentin Tarantino is the most successful, person of doing that. And I think when we're talking about AI, that's just a choice that, each person makes. It's like, am I going to prompt with this filmmaker's name in my prompt, or I personally choose not to. And then, I will go and add bits and pieces to add my spin on it, which is what you were saying. It's just kind of like, AI has been trained on everything that's come before it. It's just got all the information. It's not going to give you something new. So your challenge is, how do you intentionally create something new from everything that's come before it?
Yeah, thank you for the talk and the discussion. I wanted to add that and to say that I approve very much what you're saying, and that I feel it. I steal too as a cinematographer. I've stolen single shots from movies and recreated them for a series. I did that, and many of you perhaps too. But I think
we're going to arrest you right now.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. I come and the handcuffs, I bring them. But I think the discussion is missing the point that like individual people are getting art and photography and stuff. And I exaggerated an example. Maybe we imagine a series with 10 seasons, and like all the actors and scenographers and all the film crew has created it. And maybe in 10 years it will be possible to create the 11th and 12th seasons from the computer. Because by feeding everything in that has been done, and I would like you to hear on this moral discussions about that, but because I think that is a problem, and that could be a problem. And I also see that like everybody is inspired by stuff and everything, and even if you steal a lot for a movie, it's way different than all the things and that you're inspired by.
Okay, the only thing I'd say about that is that who said that the 11 and 12 season made totally by computer is interesting? You know, that's for the public to decide if they even like that. Just because you can copy and you can copy a performance doesn't mean it's the right performance for that particular moment, for that particular script. And the evolution that writers who write the series and the filmmakers who create the series make their characters go through. The same character is not the same in the beginning of the first season as it is in the end, for a good reason, because it wants to build and grow. So I think it always stems down to, if you like it, it's great. If you don't like it, you're the arbiter and say, don't make those anymore. I don't, you know, it doesn't move me, doesn't affect my life. It doesn't reflect what I do, and I'm not sure that it will ever. I think it's all still human. I think just copying is copying. The second version of anything is usually not very good.
And I would say also that the public is a very good barometer of what's acceptable and what's not, ultimately, because they're the ones who buy the tickets or rent the downloads and stuff. So, you know, every time you reject something because you don't like it, what it is creatively, artistically, whatever, you're making a statement in terms of how many of those products are going to be used in the future. Yes.
Oh,
do you have the microphone yet?
No, sorry, I had a microphone because I also was in line.
You go ahead while they're getting it.
I think it's a good catch-up because it's also maybe the last question on the legal perspective. So I totally get the creation process. Like it's always not reinventing something. It's always like getting inspired, draw from the inspiration, and maybe come up with something where you can also see like pop cultural references or a lot of other references. And this is actually also how we as humans probably function in a creative process. But from the legal perspective, I kind of disagree, because the argument which states that the AI models are kind of metaphorically like the learning process of a human, I cannot see this point, because training a large language model is nothing like the human experience where you grow up, you are having like, you're hearing maybe 20 songs, watching 10 movies or something like that, and then you reference that. It's nothing like, feeding an algorithm with like 100, with thousands and millions of data points, and so this is my problem with this kind of argument. And I cannot see, because also from the, we have this discussion, I'm an artist and musician myself, we have this discussion in the music industry, for instance, like all these creation tools for like coming up with a new song. A couple of these enterprises, they took all the music which they weren't allowed to take and fed it into the algorithms and make them these algorithms into commercial applications without getting like anybody paid who was like kind of fed into it. And I think this is a huge problem, which is not like there's no easy solution with saying everybody kind of takes away from inspiration or something like that. Thank you.
I actually have a bone to pick with the music industry, because they allowed sampling very early, and I was like, why are we allowing sampling of other people's works in the creation of a new work? But you know, that ship has sailed. I don't know if any of you have any comment.
I'll just say, so we have yet to see a case in the U.S. Of a music artist suing because any of the music platforms have spit out actual music that is infringing. The music producers filed a lawsuit against Anthropic over music lyrics, but we haven't seen it for music. And I'll just go back to the, if a song comes out that is substantially similar, that's the legal term in the United States, substantially similar in protected expression to somebody else's copyrighted work, that's infringing whether AI was used or not. And people are copying from people all the time, but if it crosses that line, then they're going to potentially face a lawsuit. We haven't seen that lawsuit yet, and so that doesn't mean that it won't come, but there was another woman who recently presented it at a TED Talk. She has been training a model to create music in the style of, I think she was doing Chopin. And she can make an AI Chopin come to life and play a never-before-heard symphony that would not exist but for the work and the training. So there's some really neat things being done, and I think that's one more tool that people have to be responsible for in terms of what they put out, not to copy. And then you had another point too about the books. I'll just, you said you disagree. Well, somebody who's read 100 books may be able to write a book sort of that's derivative of those and not very well informed. If they have 100 books about falling in love, if they've never been in love before, they're not gonna, it's gonna be a rote sort of spitting out of that. AI's never been in love, it's never held their child for the first time, it's never had its heart broken, right? The experiences the filmmakers in this room bring are the life experiences that they have had, and you have, nothing's gonna be good that comes out of AI that isn't informed by that.
All right, I think we have time for one more question, yes.
Okay, so first of all, I wanted to thank you for your for sharing your expertise. Also, I'm a big fan of The Last of Us. So I wanted to share two concerns. So one of my concerns is that unfortunately, the big AI companies are very intransparent, like how our data is going to be saved and for how long and where and what exactly they are like saving. So this is like one concern that we also have to keep in mind. And the other one is like, I'm more worried about who invented AI and who is like gaining money with AI, because you said this, Eleonora, the people are going to be replaced by people who know how to use AI. But AI is not a tool that is for free. People are earning like millions and billions, and it's not like a democratic process where like a lot of people are gaining this money. It's like a few tech millionaires, billionaires, who are already like mostly white, Republican men who have a lot of power in the US, as we see, and those have like a lot of power over AI. So my concern is that we are kind of advertising this as like a process that is democratizing the film and the creative industry. But if the people will get replaced by the people who use AI, what about those who are not using AI? So we will be dependent of those billionaires who have the AI tools, and we are paying money for them to be able to use these tools. So I'm kind of afraid that we are like more in a process where we are like getting more dependent of like a few very rich people who have like a lot of influence, and not only AI, but using this money to influence our politics.
I'll address the second part of your question. I don't think filmmaking was ever a democratic process, honestly, because we've had to get a camera somehow. We'd had to get film. We had to find the money to process it. And, Werner Herzog was speaking at Columbia College, where I went one time, and a film student has said, well, how can I make films? Because, you know, all the rich people can make films because I can't get a film camera, I can't get film stock and stuff. And Werner slammed his fist on the table and he says, you have to make films. You have to steal a camera. You have to fuck somebody to get film stock. You have to break into the lab and process it yourself. If you're a filmmaker, you have to make films. And I always remembered that. You know, because it's true. Regardless of how low cost some tools become or how easily available other tools become, ultimately, you know, if you're going to be a filmmaker, you have to make films. You have to do it, you know. And I don't know if anybody wants to tackle the... Yeah, Rob, go ahead.
Well, I think I can't do it as dramatically as Werner and Michael did, but I mean, you will find a way. It's a force of will. If you want to make a movie, you make a movie. You find any way, any means possible. I mean, you know, I think we all have probably backgrounds that didn't suggest that we would enter into this business and actually succeed at it in some form. So that. It wouldn't matter if AI was invented or not AI was invented. It doesn't eliminate me from working or getting my point across, because I'll find another avenue. It's like water finds its own travel. I can't remember what the thing is. But at any rate, so that part is true. We have to apologize for what just happened in America, so I'll say that there was a couple things that we didn't really care for. But the person who's going to make a lot of money with AI, besides the people who invented it and own Google and all that stuff, is the person who comes up with a great idea that uses AI to help them become another entrepreneur and make a better film or make a better product or make a better piece of advertising. So that's why it behooves you to learn it as opposed to be afraid of it, because it's here, it's not going to go away, and the only way to combat it is actually to absorb it for what it's good for and shun it for what it's not good for. And that's our own personal choices to get ahead, because there's always going to be billionaires who are going to make a lot of money, and a lot of times fraudulently, from some of these things and take advantage of us. But you will find a way to make whatever product you want to create, whether you do it by hand, whether you do it by borrowing every book you've ever seen and emulating that, just like AI is essentially doing. So I think that you could create the problem and make it much larger than the problem actually is. And we can't combat the stuff that happens where people take advantage. And what's going to happen? What's that?
All right, let's not crosstalk, please.
Okay, what did I do? You could try. I'm going to guarantee you, not that I have any experience in this, that it's here to stay. It's going to fix medical problems. It's going to fix energy problems. It's going to fix a lot of things. And also, people are going to take advantage of it and really screw it up and screw something up, because that's the nature of human beings, taking advantage of the housing crisis that happened many years ago. Is all people will find the avenue to find the corrupt version of it. That's what we have to fight against, not what the thing is, but who is using the thing inappropriately.
All right.
Again, that's just my opinion.
I do need to start moving this. You have something very short, Eleanor.
Yeah, very short. All I was going to say is I use pretty much every AI app there is. There's hundreds of them, and a lot of them are entrepreneurs who have created that, who are like using the tech for the better and challenging it, and they're like European or they're from all these different wonderful places. So my challenge is just like on the research side of it, you know.
Okay, so you have the last question, please.
Yes, it's more on the, I'd say, creative part. I wanted to say that for myself, I've only used Midjourney a bit, and I get very overwhelmed with it very easily, and also frustrated, because then I have an image in mind and I put it in and it doesn't look like I want to, and I try to start developing it and it doesn't do what I want to. And so I wanted actually to ask, for like beginners who are not so much into Midjourney and all these kind of new technologies, where do I start and how do I, you know, get better results and move forward with all this information? Because for me, it's overwhelming to where to start and how to put all these things.
Super overwhelming. There's so many different tools. It's a really good question. I started by just YouTubing. I teach an online course for how to start. I know other people that teach online courses for how to start. So research to see what looking for specifically to get out of it and then kind of pick and choose, you could do that. But I learned a lot through just YouTube. There's so many free places that that people will teach you. And it's mostly like, the AI community of filmmakers is the most inclusive I've ever seen, helpful. So there are Discord channels where people help each other. And it's like, how do I do this? Where do I get started? And there are so many of those that exist if you just like, literally Google it and find, 3 or 4 different filmmakers that you like on YouTube and go to their personal channels and start talking to people, and everyone will help you kind of get started from that way, because yeah, it is super overwhelming. But yeah, that's my advice. YouTube, different courses for it, and they're all very helpful and free, so.
All right, so ultimately, to the central question of this, the future of cinematography in the age of AI, what is it going to be? It's really going to be written by all of you. The excitement about AI is going to die down into, the level that it goes to with everything else, with virtual production, with color film, with sound in motion pictures, and it'll become part of the active toolbox of the creative filmmaker. How you use it, whether you choose to use it like any other tool in the toolbox, is going to be up to your creative impulses. So you're going to determine the future of this technology, ultimately. And I want to thank my panel, everybody, for being here, flying in. Thank you very much. Oh, and by the way, my kids say thank you so much for waving at them. They're really stoked.